Hello and welcome back to the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar Hoke here, joined by Tom Jacobs for the DP World Tour season finale. Tom, how are we doing this week?
Good. I'd be better if we had bet Paul Waring like we sporadically do. It was when I say we, that's the royal we. I sometimes throw out the 40-year-old Paul Waring. I'm not bitter about it because there was just nothing to suggest to me that he was going to win last week. But one thing I would say about it, phenomenal performance. It looked like he was going to get caught out on Saturday. He'd slowed down quite a bit. I think he went kind of 10 holes without a birdie, right, on Saturday. Rory McIlroy threw one in the water on the last hole, and just people that were chasing him didn't really give too much. And then all of a sudden he played really well on Sunday. And that's something you want to see from someone that's only won once. And, you know, he referenced how important it was to have another go at the PGA, or a first go at the PGA Tour for Paul Waring. And that's, I think, really, Sky, probably still going to be the most important factor this week for a lot of players. I was thinking about this in the one kind of person isolation before coming on, and maybe this would spoil kind of like the thought process. But someone like Tom McKibben, right, that's chasing Jordan Smith and Rikuya Hashino for the last PGA Tour spot. Do you think it's more important for him? And I know one takes care of the other, so I know that if he won this week, he would then get the PGA Tour card. But let's say he's coming down the back nine and it's right, a general tournament he's trying to win, he'll go and throw everything at birdies and eagles and try and win it. Whereas this, where he doesn't want to take those kind of risks because he would try and win trying to keep a PGA Tour kind of position. I have to believe that trying to get the PGA Tour card becomes more important at that stage.
I would agree. I think somebody it's the exact situation Q School last year, PGA Tour Q School, when you could bet it with the each ways, right? So the each ways were 5 places and they give 5 PGA Tour cards at Q School. And that was the thing, was the longer odds, the people, they might just want to conserve the third spot versus try to push for the win, because there's not that much difference between first and third when it came to starts. You probably got into a few more things, but yeah, I mean, this week that the bubble is the focus for me. I mean, of course, someone's going to win a golf tournament.
Yeah,
Rory McIlroy is going to win the race to Dubai. That's just going to happen. But I think from where we stand, it's Guido watch in realistic thing. That's why the bubble matters to me. Our guy goes from 10th to 12th, played horrific, and I'm nervous. I'm very, very nervous.
Well, I look, we were both in him last week. We thought he'd played it, brilliantly in terms of the schedule. All of a sudden, he's down to, is it 19th now? He is in the rankings.
Yeah, but of the people
of the people
applicable, 12th.
Yeah. So
right now, 10 people. Rasmus, he's locked. Or Thriston, locked. Rasmus Højgaard, locked. Paul Waring, locked. Nicholas Norgard, I would think he's locked still. Manisaro, locked. Probably from beyond there, we have Svensson, Olesen, Hoshino, Soderberg, and Smith remaining the final 5 spots.
Yeah.
McKibben and Guido, the first 2 out. Langasque is 20th. I would say below him, you're going to really need some huge weeks. I mean, the other ones, like Olsen, popped up a bunch from a 3rd place finish, right? So with as many points as they're giving here, a top 5 for some of these guys would swing pretty drastically. So I think a lot are in play, especially if you win. I mean, Waring went up 43 spots. So he was 48th to 5th. So, I mean, that's not ruling out. I mean, if you have a very surprise winner, that person could guarantee their PGA Tour card, right? So
I think what worked in Waring's favor, right, is that he had this outlandish surprise win, and then it was the best of the best below him, right? It was the Hattons, the Flippers, to your point that you're making there. So, whereas this week, and this goes on to the wider point, right? I've seen Ben already talk about it, Ben Coley. I've seen Niall talk about it. It is one of the weaker renewals of this championship that we have seen. We've not got John Rahm. He's opted to not play. Victor Hovland's not playing. Aberg's not fit. There's a couple of other players. I think Benny Ann could have played. There's a couple of players that have just not decided to come to this event, and one that's a little bit of a foreshadowing of what is going on with the tour in general. I think it's a little bit of a concern. But two, like it just presents a massive opportunity. It's why Rory's probably got this bigger lead in the first place, is that people are just not playing the sort of counting events. What it does do, I think, so Thriston Lawrence, I think the permutation for him to win it, he'd have to win, and Rory would have to finish kind of outside the top 10, right, to have any chance of that happening. I almost don't see Rory finishing outside the top 10, so we're basically ruling Lawrence out, even if he won, which is a shame. I think it should almost come down to the last event. Or it should definitely come down to the last event, really, if things are all equal. But yeah, I think it does present an opportunity where you can have, let's say, a Tom McKibbin go and win and lock up a PGA Tour card. That then makes it a really exciting event. But you're relying on that kind of permutation. Someone like a Romain Langasque, like if he goes and wins the tournament and gets a PGA Tour card all in one, that's fantastic and probably a great story for the DP World Tour. But it relies on that. If Rory beats, I don't know, Hatton and Lawrence comes in 6th place and doesn't really get anything out of it, it kind of becomes a bit of a drab event in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, so last year, kind of that scenario did happen, right? Nicolai Højgaard won the event. He was 10th in the Race to Dubai standings at the time, so a little bit higher than some of the guys that are there. But I mean, from an odds perspective, I can pull up his odds on what he was when he won last year. He had played really good the week prior too, so that probably factors in a little bit as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't put it past these guys to be able to win. I mean, it is a strong field, but again, it's not major-esque type of field, you know?
It's funny, isn't it? It's strong for DP World Tour standards, and it's strong for some of these kind of McKibbins and Langasque, the very top-heavy players they've got to beat. But from a Rory McIlroy or a Tyrrell Hatton perspective, actually it's like one of the easiest renewals they've ever played, if not the easiest of this event. And it's funny because you look down the list and you go, right, well, since 2009, there's been 15 renewals of this event. You've had Lee Westwood, Robert Carlson, Alvaro Quiros are the first 3 winners. They were pretty much a who's who of the DP World Tour at the time. Then there's been Rory McIlroy and Henrik Stenson winning the next 4 between them, 2 each. Matt Fitzpatrick, John Rahm, Danny Willett, John Rahm, Matt Fitzpatrick again. So you've had 2 wins by Fitzpatrick, 2 wins by Rahm, and a win by Danny Willett, all major winners now. Colin Morikawa, another major winner. John Rahm winning for a 3rd time. So that leaves only sort of Nicolai Højgaard in the last, decade that's not a major winner. So then the other factor is kind of this course form aspect of basically all of them had the top 10. Robert Carlson and Lee Westwood were making their debuts when they won. John Rahm was making his debut. But even Fitzpatrick had only played once before then. He'd finished 4th the year before. John Rahm, when he won the 2nd time, had obviously had a win and a 4th. Even Colin Morikawa, who won, he'd finished 10th the year before that. So you basically get to a point where you're sort of limiting the field to, has someone had a top 10 or at least very near to it in the past, and do they have the ability to contend in major championships? Because that is basically the whole list of players. Lee Westwood, famously never won a major, but he contended in every single one of them. Robert Carlson, again, top 10 or top 8 in every single major. Very much a live runner in those. Alvaro Quiros slightly different, but did have an 11th in the Open. Otherwise, it's a who's who of major champions. So it does limit you somewhat in this as a betting event, I think.
Yeah, I mean, both of our cards are 2 to 4 golfers deep, right? I mean, I saw Ben went with a single bullet, Rory McIlroy, where you don't second guess that really at a course like this for him. I mean, this course, on top of being history kind of a prerequisite, it's a ball striker's paradise, right? I mean, we have seen the best golfers every year be the top ball strikers for the week. I mean, it lays that out at Jumeirah here this is the Earth course. Yeah, the Earth course for that we've seen forever. And these guys have a good sample size at this track. I mean, it's probably one of the more recognizable ones that we get on the DP World Tour. So, I mean, that is where the top of the board. I mean, of course, if you and I were doing an entire show on a plus 450 Rory McIlroy, we would be closed up right about now. And that's just not how we've gone about it. I do think the gap with Hatton, it's just kind of crazy because, like, I don't know. I just questioned Tyrrell so much earlier in the summer when he get into these events. You know, he then obviously wins the Alfred Dunhill second last week. I mean, that gap tightened quite quick between him and Rory, probably deserving. So it's just so hard for me. Like, I don't know where I would put Hatton on the ranking of golfers in the world. I mean, Data Golf has him fifth, which feels right, but so wrong at the same time. Like, so the betting markets are thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this actually. So yesterday I was very tempted. Like, I just didn't in the end because I felt like it was not worth the conversation that could come back. But I was thinking about Tyrrell Hatton in isolation, and actually, if we're thinking about people that have had success going to live, it's probably him, right? Like, he's won in his first season. He's regularly contending pretty much every week, second, third, fourth, fifth, and he had his best Masters finish ever, and then come straight back to the DP World Tour, the last three events, 10th win, second. I think for someone like him to not lose anything, he didn't skip a beat whatsoever in terms of going to live and then just coming back and performing in the events that he's always performed well in. Hit his irons incredibly well, you know, the win and the second, the last two starts. So the difficulty comes in with someone like Tyrrell Hatton when he's ranked fifth in the world is that he doesn't contend in the majors, really. Like, I know he has got top tens in them. We just referenced one of them, and he's done it in the PGAs and US Opens and things like that. But he never looks like winning one, and he constantly underperforms in those. And if they're the biggest metric of a player, then we can't just ignore that. So it makes sense that he's close to Rory in the market, but it almost feels like it's making the case for Rory a little bit more, despite the fact I would probably rather bet Tyrrell Hatton every time he's a bit bigger.
So this is kind of a thought then, Tom. So without running the fields and kind of seeing through, it's either two-sided, right? It's either Rory is too long in the market there, and Rory is way more class than is Tyrrell Hatton. Or we have potentially the opportunity of, I guess, maybe the rest of the year, if we're looking at futures bets, that Tyrrell Hatton should be much shorter in every single major championship, right? Yeah. I mean, are we of a belief that he just cannot contend and not win one? Sure, you could say that too, but I mean, you can find him, I believe, I mean, for the Masters, you can find a 70. For the others, you can find 50s. I'm trying to look at the Open here, which is probably the most realistic. Open is even 50-1 for him, you know, where I'd be curious to kind of use some numbers to see where he should be priced out, because if you just look at the fifth golfer in the odds right now, that's Bryson.
Yep.
Or Ludwig or Morikawa, and they're 18-20 at every single major. Yeah, you know,
it's a good point. I think it's to your initial point there, is that, like, people just don't believe that Tyrrell Hatton can win a major, and I'm not in that camp. I think he can win one. I think he will contend quite seriously in one at some point. I think there is an expectation that it would be an Open Championship if he was to win one. I actually think he's got an equal opportunity across the board. Maybe until this year, I wouldn't have said the Masters. I think his game pretty much travels across, right? I mean, he's a Bay Hill winner. He wins in all these kind of Middle Eastern events, and it's just been such a barren spell for him, right, in majors. But even like the PGA Championship, I say this, and then he's been 13th in 2022, 15th in 2023, you know, 10th twice. Like, maybe the PGA Championship is just his major, right? And I don't know, like, I guess that's a wider conversation, but I do think in this isolation, it's probably Rory's a little bit on the bigger side, and that's why you're seeing a couple of people put him up as just one and done bets. I can't do that with Rory McIlroy. I just don't trust him. Very simply, from an eye test perspective, the numbers make a ton of sense. From watching Rory McIlroy trying to close out tournaments in 2024, I don't trust it. Fleetwood, we've had this conversation a million times, right? Joaquin Niemann wasn't good. He did hit the ball okay, but just wasn't good enough.
Like, he just priced too short for me too at 12s to be, I mean, basically a single only bet. But yeah, he did hit the ball very, very well, and I think he would take to this course in that kind of setup awesome. You know?
I agree. And I think, like, if he was if he was closer to Lowry at 16-1 or 18-1, I think we'd have a conversation about him. But even like Lowry just feels short of 16s. So then we're into this next category, which I guess kind of leads us into our first pick.
Yeah, aligned on this. And I couldn't tell you the last time I've bet this golfer, at least at a number in this range. But it's Matt Wallace, right? Matt Wallace, you can find a 20-1 right now on him. So Matt Wallace, he's somebody that I just can't get my head around because he never hits the ball that well, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like he can be okay off the tee or spike with an iron, but to combine those two parts of his game has just been difficult for him to do pretty much his whole career, it feels like, you know. So it's been somebody that you're trying to get right on the short game, where way more often than not he is going to be playing positively in that. But last week was probably the last time you could say Matt Wallace led maybe like tee to green and didn't really win on the DP World Tour has been a minute. You know, he kind of did it at the Byron Nelson earlier this year, but when you get that type of game from him, I mean, he's winning those events in Europe almost always. And so he comes off of that at a course that he's got some strong history on overall versus his game. I think at 20s, it's a gift.
Yeah, and I think with Matt Wallace, you've got a player that wouldn't look massively out of place on this winners list. And I think that's the main thing, right? Is that no, he's not a major contender, or he hasn't won a major or anything like that. He's finished third in a PGA Championship in 2019. But he's a 5-time DP World Tour winner. He has won on the PGA Tour. He's had another couple of opportunities, you know, at Crans in a playoff and you know, and another PGA Tour event. I think the Valspar had a good chance in there as well. That he does prove it. And like you say, I've probably like one of the leaders in the Matt Wallace hater fan club or hater club. I don't know how to say that. I'm quite anti Matt Wallace at times and sort of look at it, and I always think he's quite short in the betting, especially on the PGA Tour. I find he's quite short on the numbers. But then he was 30-1 last week. He's now 20-1 this week after finishing, you know, third in that tournament and hitting a final round 63, hitting a second round 65, leading the field in tee to green, ranking third in approach. And then he comes to a golf course where he's got 2 seconds. And both times he's been right there. And you'd probably argue of the last 10 years, they're the 2 chances where he's had an opportunity to beat someone and kind of near his level, right? Like Danny Willett, he lost by 2 strokes to in 2018. I know he obviously is a Masters winner, but generally speaking, similar type of profile. And then Nikolai Højgaard last year, who was, yes, an emerging talent, but he isn't the same lines of thinking of John Rahm, Morikawa, Fitzpatrick, etc. So, and it feels like that sort of week again, where if Rory McIlroy doesn't bring his A game and doesn't close things out, I think there is an opportunity for a second-tier golfer to win. And Matt Wallace, I think, feels that, you know, beautifully. I think he's a great player in the Middle East. He's proved it again last week. He was very buoyant about his game. And it would make perfect sense that he'd go on and win for a second time this year. Like he's doing everything that we should expect from a player of his ability. And I've almost turned around on him a little bit. I think I probably undervalue quite how good he is, just because I felt like he went on that run, didn't he, in 2018 where he won the 3 times, didn't get into the Ryder Cup team. And I felt like that was a big sticking point for him. Didn't see him for a couple of years again after that. And then all of a sudden it looks like he's ready to go again. And he's got to have his eyes set on next year's Ryder Cup. Yeah,
absolutely. He won that Omega with losing strokes on approach, and not just a little bit, a lot. I can't stand like that. That's one of the things that probably frustrates me the most with betting golf is when you get luck boxed into those situations, and it happens every week. Somebody's going to do that, right? But
he's just not predictable. Like, I don't think he is a predictable golfer. So every time I see him at 20-1 or 28-1 or 30-1, I think, well, you know, yes, the upside is there, but no, I don't believe this is just a continuous run of form. I think, yes, he could spike on any given one of these 33-1s, but I might as well just back him in 2 weeks' time or whatever. Whereas this time it feels like he's made a very clear run in the right part of the world. You know, his irons and off the tee are in great form. So let's go and get the winner again this week.
Yep, I'm in. Um, I don't want to say we're in on the fence at a couple other golfers in this similar range. Do you want to go through who you're lean or if you're pulling the
Yeah.
trigger on them?
I'm really like if people that have listened to this show for a number of years, if they could have told me who I was going to pick, they wouldn't be picking out Matt Wallace and Robert McIntyre. But I do believe McIntyre needs to be viewed slightly differently this year. To go and win the Canadian Open and the Scottish Open, especially a year after losing at Scottish Open in such dramatic fashion to Rory McIlroy, to go and win the Canadian Open in the way that he did, he shot 68 on the final day, he shot 64, 66 over the first 3 rounds. He was so solid. And then when you look at his numbers on data golf, like he isn't spiking in the way you'd want to see his irons right now, but it's so consistent across the board. Prior to last week, he'd gained strokes on putting in, I think, the last 6 events. Around the green's always pretty good for him. Off the tee, he's going to be pretty solid. He needs to have a spike with his irons for sure. And that's why the 20-1 feels a little bit kind of, a little bit worrying. But I think he can do it. And the reason for that, last year he was 9th going into the weekend, finished 18th here. He did finish 4th here 3 years ago. He was 3rd going into Sunday. When he was 23rd the year before that, he was 2nd after round 1, 4th after round 3. So he's had 2 occasions now where he's gone into Sunday with a chance to win this golf tournament. And I think that's massive for someone that is now very obviously capable of winning golf tournaments. If you'd have asked me a year ago, do I think Robert McIntyre wins golf tournaments? I would say he does potentially, but it's not going to have my money on it. Whereas to go and win 2 times on the PGA Tour, that changes everything for me. And last week he was inside the top 10 for the first 3 rounds. He was there for the most part. It is just those irons holding me back from feeling really confident.
Yeah, I mean, with him, I feel like you can just throw things out and just think about the elevation of the moment almost. Yeah. And he's rose to that occasion multiple times this year, even making the cut at the Open Championship the week after the Scottish Open, after partying like crazy back at Omaha, like Open, like you just, he has a different charisma and confidence. I feel like that he steps up to the plate with. 20s is still, you're paying for that a little bit, where I'm leaning at 30-1 right now for Nicholas Norgard. So, with Norgard, to me, we're still buying the ceiling here, right? Wins the British Masters, top 10 at Wentworth, 2 weeks later, top 15 at the Scottish Open for him, and pretty much, an early PGA Tour star. He just has this combination of incredible off the tee game with maybe the best putter in Europe, like one of the best putters in Europe, right? 7 of his last 8 events, he's been in the positive, and it's not just barely in the positive either. Like he is gaining, and half of those, at least a stroke around. That's just a consistent point. If you can hit the ball far and you can putt it well, he is going to play really good on the PGA Tour next year, in my opinion. And we're getting to a course now where he can kind of let it bomb. And last week he was really good with the irons. When he's been positive with his irons, that correlates to pretty much a good week, a win, a 7th, a 12th, a 10th in the 4 events pretty much as of late that he has gained with his irons. Last week was really good. And I guess his off the tee game cost him for the first time since June, so that it's going to bounce back 100%. So I feel like at 30, we're still buying into the ceiling with him. I mean, from a historical standpoint, I don't believe he's ever gotten this far. No, I don't think he's gotten into the playoffs before to this degree. So you are getting a debutant at 30-1. So I can understand kind of that. And he gives me a little Aubert vibes from the way he plays these courses. It's the only reverse fear I have, in the sense that he won at the British Masters and then played awesome at Wentworth, courses that I wouldn't have expected him to really show up at all on. I think, let me double check. Yeah. Rinkvin, isn't Rinkvin the tight one in Belgium, Soudal, right? Where he was 2nd there earlier this year. So he has an anomaly in him. Like, for some reason, if he got a sponsor's exemption to the RSM next week, he would be top of my betting card, because he has this weird thing about him. But I still would think it plays super well in a course like Jumeirah is this week. So I'm gonna bet him at 30-1.
Yeah, and I think we touched upon this a little while ago. That it is surprising where he does play well, and we haven't got this massive bank of Middle Eastern form for him. And I was thinking about him again, like if I'm elevating McIntyre for the wins that he's had, which is basically the next level from anywhere. He's always been a player who's been, second or third in the past. You have to elevate a Norgard-Moller that's finished inside the top 10 six times this season with a win. I think it's 5 times: Bahrain, Tadal, European Open, British Masters, Wentworth, and last week. And as you say, it's just been relatively consistent. Even when he was horrendous with his irons at Andalusia, he finishes 28th. Like there seems to be a bit of a flaw now with Moller, whereas before it was like, well, he can either top 10 or miss the cut because he relies so strongly on his driver. And look, it certainly charges everything that he does, but to couple that with putting, to couple that with relatively consistent irons, he's had a couple of events there where he was disappointing. But I don't know. I find it hard to see him winning again in this short space of time, but I can see the value aspect of it. It'd be interesting to see whether Moller or Tristan Lawrence at the same number are going to perform better. Like Tristan Lawrence has got the opportunity to actually win the whole race to Dubai, and he's won a couple of times before, and he's played well at this golf course already. Whereas Moller were a bit of an unknown, but in terms of course fit, you'd pick Moller.
If you bet Cam Champ in 2025 on the PGA Tour, you bet Nicholas Norgard-Moller on the same betting card. That's a rule of thumb that we're going to say for 2025.
Yeah, I like it.
Mid-range, do you have anybody? I didn't even really, I guess mid-range 30s to like 60s. I didn't even really have anybody come to mind for me here.
The McKibben one kind of makes sense from a who's
motivation
got to win thing, right? But
yeah,
I always come down on the side of like who would leave it until the last event to have that motivation. Like he's a good enough player. He is actually well suited to it and playing well, so I don't mind it at all. I thought you might have looked at Cantor after he sort of flashed a bit last week.
Yeah, I definitely double taked there. I don't mind it. Again, he's got an angle to play for a lot too, to try to backdoor a card. A lot of these guys do, right? I mean, you get, let's see, if their wearing's locked up. So you have McKibben, Cantor, Nakajima would need another really, really good week to run up there. I mean, we did skip over Olesen. I didn't think about this, Tom. I know he's 22-1.
Yeah.
I didn't even consider him in the equation of getting a PGA Tour card like through this way. Like he is taking one of those away from those guys. Yeah. He wasn't good enough to hold his card. So it's interesting that he can come back and just retain it through DP World Tour membership. But that was the other one who jumped up there.
I just think I've got to have a break.
I'm good. At 22s, I'm good. Way good.
I would not be surprised at all to see him win, but there's 2 times now in France and last week where I thought he's got it. Like this is his opportunities. He's taking on wearing and he can really go for it, and then he doesn't kick on. Really quite disappointing for me.
Who was disappointing too? Sorry to cut you off, but like Veerman was very disappointing too for both of us last week. To be in that spot on Saturday and you have the leader go backwards like he did, I mean that just made me lose all hope in betting Veerman for a while.
Well, they were both tied second after Friday and Saturday, right? Olesen and Veerman. They were both in prime position both times, and like you say, like wearing as soon as he stutters on
Saturday,
you're thinking, what this is one of them's going to go forward, like surely, and they both stepped backwards. They both went the wrong way, and Veerman was a bit more dramatic. He went into the final round in 13th place and just got worse on Sunday. But Olesen, he never left the top 3. He was there the whole time. He was just not convincing on Saturday at all. Almost like if he's playing his absolute best, I think he can front run. If he is waiting for the opportunity, like, you hear these players and they go, oh, so-and-so's lurking because now he's dropping back. He doesn't feel like the golfer at the moment that's just going to go and take that when he should be. He's a 6-7 time winner on DP World Tour. Whereas I think someone like a Wallace or McIntyre, to my point, both could go forward in that respect. Just on Cantor, last week he was inside the top 6 after 2 rounds, had a terrible Saturday, and then shot 67 to bounce back on Sunday. And then when you look at just players that have actually had some success here in the past, Cantor was 5th in 2020. He was the 54-hole leader, Sky, and then finished 27th on his second start, where he had weaker rounds of 68. So if I was picking anyone in this range, it would be him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of kind of old faith, I think, in Cantor, rather than just knowing exactly what he's going to deliver.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he would have probably been the one. I'm letting Guido just motivate himself this week.
Let him win.
Just let him figure it out. Pushed and carried. If you win, Guido, it's still a win for me because you're on the PGA Tour, and I'll be seeing you every week in Florida, every single week, Guido. Tuesday through Sunday, we can just tee us up 18 holes together. I will be there. But the one on our cards, another alignment, Tom, and if you talk about frustrating, if it wasn't for a Thursday 73 from Antoine Rosner, who still finished 6th last week, no one shoots over par at that course last week. Nobody. And Rosner, you have to have the second worst day of the round for a round of the day on Thursday to then still finish T6, man. That was, I didn't get 6th place on him. I had 5. So that was frustrating to be right there, but kind of getting another gift, man. 80s on him is pretty nice.
I understand the win aspect of it, in the sense that people just don't believe he's going to win. I don't get why you get that kind of value each way still with Rosner, because this is now a player that's finished inside the top 10 in 4 of his last 10 starts, I want to say. Like he's just playing really well. Tied for the Italian Open, 7th at Wentworth, 4th at Genesis and Korea, where he gains a bunch on approach. And then last week, actually, the thing that's been holding him back so much was his putter, is what drove the result. And I always trust him to bounce back with approach and off the tee. And when you look as well, we talk about this, referencing that earlier point of you want someone to have shown a top 10 finish in the past to have a chance. He finished 11th last year, and he was 4th after round 1, 2nd going into the weekend, and 9th going into Sunday. I think he can lift himself by 1 place and feel pretty comfortable. So I'm confident that he's got the kind of learning curve that he needed after 3 very ordinary years here. He's so good in the Middle East. He's really a Middle East player. Excellent. That's where a couple of his wins have come from. So I see no reason not to go back to the well with Rosner, other than he wasn't quite as impressive ball striking as he was the first.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely, that was the no-brainer off the top. Somebody who can close 54 like that, can birdie like he has. Obviously, he's won on the property at the other course. Absolutely in on him. And so, Tom, I was trying to think back why I associate Rosner with Dubai so much. And we talked about it last week when he won that event, when I think it was the COVID year, why they played on the same property 2 years in a row. And perhaps there was nothing else to do besides watch golf. So that's kind of why it's so vivid. But the other person I can remember from that event and associate with Dubai, even though the history wasn't all that impressive, pretty much between now and then, was Francesco Laporta.
Yeah.
Francesco Laporta. I mean, last week he was 13th in Abu Dhabi, which I believe is his best finish kind of in this area of the world since that 2020 Golf in Dubai Championship, where he was the runner-up to Rosner. But now it's 4 consecutive top 20s for Laporta after only posting 3 of them in the entire year, dating back. I mean, that was 1 in South Africa, 1 at the SEC Championship, 1 at the Czech Masters, and litter between that was virtually nothing.
Yeah.
A brutal year for him has now all the way gotten him to the championship with his late run of form. So overall, when I think through what he was, right? I mean, he was Challenge Tour Player of the Year in 2019 and just hasn't kicked on to what we think. He's 34 years old now, but this stretch run of form with still in my head in association with, Abu Dhabi golf and playing well here and a really good putter as of late, been consistent off the tee for pretty much the entire summer. It's finally the irons with the putter that have taken a turn. So of value long shots, when you can kind of get some of those each ways, kind of with it. I mean, he's 100 to 1 outright, if you want to go to a book that had him with, places, those are probably 80s and 90s, but he's just leaderboard watching. He's been around for a month and a half now.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just the look. They look quite similar, Rosner and Laporta, in terms of that bearded kind of approach. I kind of associate that group of players, Rosner, Laporta, Matthew Pavon, of like these same sort of players that can spike, and they can kind of be anything. And I don't think Laporta winning is quite as obvious as when Pavon finally broke through. I think Pavon had showed a few more kind of goes at it in the past, right? But I can't imagine the gap is too big. Now, Pavon's gone on and impressed, amazingly since then. He's gone to win the PGA Tour at Torrey Pines. He's gone to contend in, was it the US Open or the PGA? The US Open, right?
Well, in Masters, he was like 12th too, and then he contended at the US Open too. Yeah.
So I can't suddenly just say Laporta's going to go and do that, but it feels like the same sort of thing where they flashed in certain times a year. They weren't consistent, but then they had a run of 4 or 5 events in a row. It doesn't feel that dissimilar to me. So I think going back again to that earlier point of just like, what's more important now? Laporta has to win to get a PGA Tour card, but like for those people that just are on that bubble, I just think they can get themselves in a position where they've got a PGA Tour card locked up, and any sort of massive error on 16, 17, 18 is going to throw them out. I think they saved that card, and people will be really surprised. And it's because of what someone like a Pavon's gone and done in their career. They can really change everything. And I know that stemmed from a win in his part, but only one person wins every week, right? So, I quite like the pick. I did look at him. I just think, to your point, when you mentioned that he hadn't really had a lot of success in Dubai outside of that one time, or Abu Dhabi or anything like that kind of threw me off a bit. But if you're looking at anyone over 100 to 1, you're not finding people that have finished 10th already at this golf course. It's as simple as that. I mean, you've got Lane Gask, who is playing for that PGA Tour card. He finished 11th last year, same with Rosner, and was 20th.
I think Lane Gask led the field in approach last week too. Like he does that frequently, but his irons were good. I took a look there. Yeah,
like I think he's potentially the one. Like he opened with 67, closed with 67. The difficulty is when you shoot 70, 71 on a course that was yielding so many birdies, you're never going to get in the mix. But I think he's probably the one, Lane Gask, that if I was going to take one from triple digits, and I may still take him yet. Let's just look into this, because I'm pretty sure his Dubai record is or Middle Eastern record is pretty good as well.
Are we sure you want to root for somebody who would directly impact Guido's PGA Tour chances? Not that Rosner wouldn't, but I mean, Romain is right there,
Yeah, that is tough. It's a how much do you like money thing, I guess. He's not quite as impressive as I thought he would be in Dubai. He's got a couple of kind of like 12th and 16th at this Abu Dhabi event, and he's been okay. He's got the 11th here last year. Just consistent, Lane Gask, I think. And I was saying to Brad last week, because he put him up for last week's event, it feels like for the first time in a long time, Lane Gask is being fairly priced. Like at 100 to 1, I think that's ridiculous. Whereas he's normally kind of way too short, and it's an easy skip. Someone ridiculous is going to come from the 200 to 1 range or 150 to 1 range and just be in the mix. There's no reason to pick out any one of them.
I like one more that I'm not going to bet on him, but DFS, I was writing out kind of some lineups. It was Ugo Kusad, who I took a double take on, just because of his spikes. So, right, he's got 4 top 5s or top 7s on the season. 2 of them have been in this area of the world, Qatar and last week in Abu Dhabi for him. Spiked, from a tee to green basis. His off the tee game has actually been, quite outstanding. 4 of the last 5 weeks, he has been very to the positive. 4 of the last 5 weeks for the irons have also been around the green. And then he putted well. If he kind of chips and putts well, he's right in that. One of those top 10s too was at Wentworth, right? So like that's a pretty decent year for someone like him to kind of pop. And I think we were on him in Qatar, right? I mean, you cashed the Hoshino ticket. I think I was on Ugo that week. So I mean, that's somewhere, that Rosner has played well in Qatar, obviously, kind of looking at some of those links there. So he was my pick of the litter from down the board.
Yeah, like if you just look at the last few years, we've had, in Pavon we've already referenced, but like Winter, Ferguson both tied ninth last year in this event. And then you go back a year later, Adrianaus, Jorge Campillo both tied ninth, Maximilian Kiefer 11th. Go back the year before that, Bjork was second, Colin Morikawa. You do get some strange. Sam Horsfield ninth, Catlin ninth, JB Hansen ninth. I mean, Catlin's is aged differently, but you're going to get a bit of a strange person inside the top 10. It's just whether we think you're going to get these kind of people playing for places, and evidently with our picks, we probably don't think that.
I'm just trying to double check here where Ugo's win was last year.
So,
because he was second at the UAE Challenge, 15th in the Abu Dhabi Challenge. The week before was just called The Challenge.
The Challenge presented by KGA.
2023. Let's see. Because normally they do it in swings, right?
Yeah, it was.
That one was in India. So it was separating between that. So Abu Dhabi and then UAE were the following two events.
Yeah, but it's funny, isn't it, with him, because I think his season's probably gone underrated a little bit to get this far for a player of his skill set. I think is really impressive. And then you look at it. I mean, started really strongly, didn't he? Bahrain 12th, the second in Qatar, as you said, 2 more back-to-back top 25s there, 5th at the Scandinavian Mixed, 7th at Wentworth, 6th last week. That's a serious run of form for someone that I don't think was voted as a kind of breakout star. Like it's been pretty impressive.
No, I mean, in that, just looking back at his results, there was the 15th there where he shot a second round 74 and still ended up kind of in the mix. And then the UAE Challenge where he was top 10, second, lost by a stroke, to Ratliff. I don't know. I'll see where the places are on Ugo as we kind of round out the show, but that's at least somebody down the board that I feel intrigued on.
I feel like these are some of these ones where I know people don't necessarily love the market, but some of these are going to go out pretty early on. Do they do it by position for tee times do they go in reverse order?
I would think so.
Pretty sure they do, right? So if they
should.
go like 50th out in the opening thing, then maybe you just expect one of these to go and shoot the lowest round because they're all showing a little bit of form. That's why they're here. Might be the way to play. One player I was a little bit interested in, we didn't really touch on him there. I don't know what Soderberg is anymore.
he moved up the leaderboard last week, and I mean he's sitting on a card right now,
Yeah, like he's not been great here. He shot a Saturday 66 last year, but it's otherwise been pretty middling. He was third going into Sunday, 15th going into Sunday in France. He's kind of fought those demons pretty well. 9th going into the final round in Crayons, finishing 12th. Feels like he's doing a lot. I still, you can never trust this guy to win. That's why he is, we're talking about him the way that we're talking about him. But I could just see him having another good week. Then locking up that PJ Tour card, and then it's like, well, what happens? Do you just go out and shine a new light on yourself? I don't think he's ever going to shake that moniker of not being a winner, but certainly someone that can go and pile up a few sort of top 20s on the PJ Tour and keep his card.
He's going to be a great DraftKings play at 7,100 every single week. That's how I can see it out. T18, after shooting 266s to open there, you're excited for the weekend and just falls right on his face. That's Soderberg, and he'll get you enough DraftKings points to pay off.
Do you think there's anything in, like, would you target anyone that's got this extra motivation? Like McKibben, Guido, Hoshino trying to hold on? I just don't like it. I think you're relying on something happening that they've not been able to do all season. But yeah,
I almost like it more from like the prayer side of things. Like Ugo's got to win to do that, right? Like Waring had to win. Rosner has to win to probably get there. I'm almost more, because then they're gonna like chance things, right?
Yeah.
Like they are really going to push it. So versus the conservative side of what it could be.
You're getting double motivation. I've got to win this
Or
tournament.
the nerves too. The nerves is the
Yeah.
other side as well. I mean, Guido could have been pressing last week.
I'd love to get in these people's minds just for a day and just really understand them.
I'd like more. Maybe I don't tune in enough, but like, man, I would, if I'm the media there, I would be hammering these questions to try to get an idea. Is there any of these guys who are going to pass on the card? I don't know. Campillo said if Campillo has a good week and gets back up there, I don't even know if he's in the field, honestly. But like, he was somebody who was passing on it, you know, like is anybody?
He's in the card. Yeah. He's in
okay. Yeah. He's like 80. So, you know, like he's somebody who said, I'm good. I'm going back. Like, I don't know. And the other person we didn't talk about, I'm letting Price Discovery play it out again. I'm good with Adrian Meronk. I'm okay not betting at him after trying last week, even though he's longer now.
He wasn't good, was he?
He was good on Saturday, and that was it.
And I just think I think the whole argument of like Meronk last week was that he could do what he did on Saturday on any given week. The fact that he only did it for one round suggests to me that he's just completely lost and talent took over on Saturday on easy.
The thing is,
that wasn't easy on Saturday.
What if it was Sunday? If he shot a 64 on Sunday, I feel like we'd almost be more interested because it's the last taste we have. But he wasn't bad on the weekend in a longer price. Like I wouldn't fault anyone for going in on him if we thought Saturday and Sunday was going to be. What were his tee to green numbers and stuff on those days specifically? Like, did he have a shift? Like, part of me would be like, his rust could have, you know, he could have gotten the rust off a little bit.
Yeah, sure. That's true. Let's have a look. So he led the field in approach on Saturday. Yeah. Which won't be a surprise given the way he played. But then he lost strokes again.
A bunch on Sunday,
59th
right?
in the field on Sunday.
Yeah.
That to me feels like he's just had a good day. One random good day. And he came in a tougher day than that. It's almost the fact he couldn't take advantage of those easier days in the first two.
Yeah, he was basically dead last tee to green on Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, if it would have been repeated both days, maybe didn't putt well on Sunday, I would have been more intrigued on going there. But that does it for my run through. Anybody else? So we touched a lot on the field.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's only 50 in there, right? But like the one now you've got me looking at it, like Ewan Ferguson was 10th in tee to green in the second round, 9th on Sunday. I'm just looking at the approach numbers. I think they were pretty middling. No, the approach number's good as well. 9th on Friday, 8th on Sunday. So maybe Ferguson's someone to think about. Hit the ball nicely.
He's won in guitar, right?
Yep, 9th last year. He's got that blend of. He's actually got the top 10 in the golf course that you need. He's got a win in the area.
There's still a lot of health questions around him. I don't know if you've kept up with some of it, right? Like he has like a case of vertigo or something where he's had to withdraw a bunch, and he's actually sad to not capitalize on what is a really good season, right? I mean, if he pretty much since the Open Championship has done almost nothing at events that he would have normally done good at, right? Like that's been the tough part with him.
I can't see him winning, so it's not worth it. But like, it's worth throwing out that he had a good ball striking week, and
for sure,
like the top 10 last week.
Yeah.
I say put a bow on it. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about every one of the 50 players.
Okay. We'll give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, the Mix, available across Mayo Media Network and on all of your podcast platforms. Rate, review, subscribe. We appreciate all the love from you guys. It goes a really long way. Next week, again, is going to be our Q School preview, is what we're thinking of kind of doing either Monday, Tuesday next week to have it up for kind of an evergreen piece, at least for the fall for us. Might get back together another time to preview a big event or two, but that event normally encapsulates, or that show will encapsulate our thoughts on who gets through on Q School and challenge tour guys, a little bit of everything, as the fields will be pretty new in a week from now. So excited always for that events, especially as they've split up Australia and South Africa now, versus having both events at the exact same time. So gives those guys a little bit more chances to compete in the fall swing. But again, your support for us goes a long way there. Tom, do you mind reviewing your betting card for us?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Matt Wallace at 20-1. That's a consensus pick there. I am going to go Robert McIntyre at 20-1. I'm going to go with it. I just think he's taken another step in his game, and I'm going to go with Antoine Rosner, who is 80-1 best price, and I will be taking that kind of win only price if you're in the US. Is it just kind of 50-1 if you want each way in the US, Scott?
So Rosner, if you wanted, there's an 80 win only here.
Yeah.
Let me refresh the page. Let me double check here. You guys are up to speed on odds checker when you got these. Rosner 80-1 win only, 60-1 with the places.
Okay. So yeah.
365 has got five places each way this week, right?
Yep.
So 60 at a quarter, right? So you're looking at 15-1 for a top 5. That feels great. So I'd be good with that 60s as well.
So 20-1 on Wallace and and McIntyre win only. Rosner a little bit on the win at 80-1, and a little bit on the each way at 60s as well.
Yep, 100%. Okay, so I'm with you. 20-1 Matt Wallace win only. Nicholas Norgard Mahler, or just Nicholas Norgard at most books now. 30-1 win only. Rosner 60-1 with the places. Laporta 90-1 with the places, and then I am going to add Ugo's best price is 200-1 at bet 365. So you get those 5 places there too at 50-1. So bigger card than I thought teeing off the show, but still five guys for me, 3 for you, 3 for you. Yeah. Yep. So with a couple crossovers, let's end the season with a bang. I'm in to hoist the trophy together, Tom, and get Guido a PGA Tour card.
Yeah. I mean, what it's a tough one, right? So what can Guido get a card with?
I mean, I think you could get it anywhere in the top 5, honestly. I mean, Olesen jumped last week. Let's see. Olesen jumped 6 places in those rankings with a T3. Wallace 6 places with a T3.
Okay.
So Guido jumps from 19th to 13th, just say. He would jump 3 guys who have their PGA Tour cards, bearing they didn't play well. So just say one of those guys didn't play well. He's jumping.
Yeah. So we want Matt Wallace, Rosner, Guido. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that would be probably ideal.
There we go.
Or Guido runner up to one of our winners with the other guys in the places.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Hoshino, Soderberg, and Smith not playing well, since we don't have any parts of those guys.
No, and without being horrible, don't really care if they're on the PGA Tour next season or not.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Jordan Smith would kind of be fun on the PGA Tour, but
he would, and I'd love to see it just because his ball striking works. But ultimately, I don't know how much he would split. I don't know how he. I guess he would be the sort of. I think he'd embrace it actually.
I think he could. It'll be interesting. So a lot on the line all across the board. Like you said, appreciate the support from you guys. Tom, thank you as always, and we'll catch you guys next week for our full preview of the fall events coming for the 2024-25 DP World Tour season. Till then, see you guys there.
Thanks, everyone.